Joe,
Hey,
hello.
Danielle.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
I am doing very well. So,
Thanks for taking this over.
yeah, it's my pleasure. And I believe we're live. So, I'm just going
Okay,
to jump
great.
right into this.
Yeah,
Um, Welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. If you're new here, we hold pre-launch Q&As with mystery and thriller authors, only the best of them, as Joe can attest, for Mystery Monday, because Mondays can be murder. We're kicking off with Joe Finder, the New York Times bestselling author of 15 suspense novels, including House on Fire, The Fixer, and Suspicion. Two of his novels have been adapted into major motion pictures, Paranoia and High Crimes. Joe, welcome to Mystery, Thriller, and Mavens. It's great to see you again. We've run into each other at a number of different
yeah.
places, so it's fun to see you here.
Thriller Fest and Bouchercon.
Thriller Fest, the
Right.
Authors Guild Gala last year,
Right.
right? We have actually proof. We have this beautiful picture of you in your tux, looking very, very fancy. But anyway, I'm so excited about your new novel. It's been
Great.
getting a lot of buzz, and a lot of people are talking about it. So I'm glad that you're here with us. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, it's the story of a regular American guy who falls in love with the daughter of a Russian oligarch without knowing she's the daughter of a Russian oligarch.
Oops.
Right. And then American intelligence takes an interest in him and pressures him into informing on his what becomes his father-in-law, and that's the basic setup of the book.
That sounds really, really fun. And I know that you speak Russian. I think you
Yeah,
told me that before, and I know that from reading about this book. And so, what role did that play in your idea for this novel? Is it an autobiography by chance?
it's not autobiography, but the I studied Russian in college and then in grad school. Russian studies, Russian history, Russian politics, Soviet history, and I actually pay a lot of attention to what's going on in Russia. And I was really captivated by this phenomenon of these billionaire Russian oligarchs coming over to the West and buying up some of our grandest mansions, biggest yachts, private jets. And they were also donating philanthropically to museums and hospitals. And the Tate Museum had a wing named after one of the oligarchs.
Yeah,
Um,
there are a lot of them in London.
a lot, which is called Londongrad now, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so, so I was sort of fascinated by that phenomenon, and then I sort of saw them as merchant princes, you know, and then Russia invaded Ukraine while I was working on the book, and that screwed things up. And I just sort of thought, man, there goes my book. There goes my story. You know?
Life gets in the way.
Yeah. And instead, I thought a little more, and I realized this could make a very interesting book if I did two timelines. I had one before the war in Ukraine and one during. And that ended up making the book that much richer and deeper as it turned out.
Oh, that's amazing. I love how you were able to just adapt. I think some people would maybe toss it in the trash and just say,
Yeah,
"Up next." But
yeah.
that sounds fascinating, and I love that there are two timelines. So we have a couple of people who are asking questions in the chat.
Mhm.
Robin says hello from Idaho.
Oh,
Hi,
hi.
Robin. And we have Renee asking why you're so interested in Russia. I guess I'm curious too. What originally drew you to study Russian when you were in college? It's
Well,
fascinating.
yeah, and that's a good question. My older sister spoke Russian, learned it in junior high, and she had this collection of books on her bookshelf, and one of them was a collection of short stories by a writer named Gogol.
Mm.
And I picked it up and I read it, and it was a story called The Nose, about a guy whose nose falls off of his face and uh, begins to march around the streets of St. Petersburg. Um, anyway, it's a crazy story, and it really captivated me. And I just sort of thought, how cool is this? What kind of language, what kind of place would produce a story like this, a writer like Gogol? And I decided I wanted to study Russian in junior
That's
high. Yeah.
that's so interesting that you knew in junior high. I had a brief fascination with Nabokov.
Hmm.
Actually, kind of a lifelong fascination,
Yeah.
and the life he led before the revolution and after, and it's
Yeah.
fascinating to read about how much Russia changed. And
Speak memory. Yeah.
yeah, speak memory, and
Great
if you
book.
read, his letters and different things, different
Yeah.
sort of nonfiction about his experience is fascinating.
Yeah.
We have John from Northeast Ohio saying hello. He says he's looking forward to reading your book. And, I wish Sarah, it's very fun to be here with you, Joe. And, I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I kind of wish Sarah were here because do you know that she speaks Russian?
I didn't know that. No.
Yes, she does very well. So I have a feeling that she
Fantastic.
was going to break that out and surprise you like live.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she can't be here
That
tonight.
would
So
have
I
been
wish I could
great.
speak
Yeah.
Russian and surprise you as well. No, Renee, I don't know Russian. Renee's asking if I know Russian. No, unfortunately. Je parle français, mais pas le russe. Um, let's see. Could you tell me a little bit about your hero? His name is Paul Brightman.
Hmm.
And he speaks some Russian.
A little bit. Hmm.
I don't want you to give too much of the story away, but what is his journey through the book? Just to give people like, how does he go through those? How do those two timelines play in to his journey?
Yeah. So Paul is working at a hedge fund in New York and just starting out. And he's going to a fundraiser one night and he meets this woman, a photographer, who he's immediately attracted to and finds fascinating, really interesting. And they hit it off. They go off and they sort of have a date and they begin to see each other. And she has concealed from him the fact that she is the daughter of a Russian oligarch. And so by the time he finds out, it's in a sense too late. So he not only falls in love with her, but he sort of falls in love with her family, which is a warm, enveloping Russian family. And Russian culture, Russian families are so inviting and warm. And Paul comes from a family that is cold and small, and his father's half crazy, and his mother died when he was young. And so he finds this so appealing, this family. And then he is compelled by the FBI to start reporting on his father in law. And he realizes this could actually be dangerous.
A little
Right?
bit,
A little bit
maybe.
dangerous, yeah. And by the time his father-in-law finds out, he is forced to go on the run and he disappears. So
Wow, fun.
the book opens with him on the run, essentially, uh, through the forests of New Hampshire.
Oh, sounds like so much fun, and that's why it's a thriller.
A thriller, right, right.
Moving fast. So a couple of things from our chat. Laika, I think that's how you say her name, or Lika, says hello from Texas and welcome, Joseph. Renee is going to see you live in Palm Beach County, Florida later this winter. Do you have an event
I
there? You must
do, yeah.
have an
I
event.
would
You have
love,
some people who are going to come see you.
yeah.
And there's another question about if Sarah is okay. Sarah's just fine. She just couldn't be here tonight. And another question from the chat, Joseph, who has been your most difficult character to write about, and why?
What a good question. And that's a tough one too.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. 15 books, a lot of characters.
yeah. So I guess I found Tatyana the hardest to write about. She's the daughter of the oligarch because I didn't want her to be just a rich girl and a bimbo. I wanted her to be interesting and smart and rebellious. And so I had to sort of create a biography for Tatyana that made sense in the course of the book. Uh, so I think probably writing about Tatyana was most difficult.
And did you talk to Russian women, or do you have, some acquaintances that you can draw on for, I don't know, little details like what kind
Yeah,
of, I don't know, food they like, or
yeah.
kinds
Well,
of clothes that they like, that sort of thing?
yeah. So I've been to Russia a number of times, and I've got some friends. I went to graduate school at the Russian Research Center at Harvard, and I've got some friends who were Russian emigres who I met while I was there, and who I constantly emailed and said, "So what are the holidays like, and what do you cook? What's the food's very important to Russians. What is it like?" So yeah, I was able to sort of to get ideas from Russians that I talked to.
Oh, so I'm sorry, I'm like fascinated. So Robin has just posted something in the chat saying, "I bet Sarah would issue you the challenge to get a photo with Joe and post it here." Okay, no challenges. Sorry, Robin. I love these people. So a lot of these people I remember from when I was on Sarah's show, and they're just the best. Thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah,
Um, Something else I'm wondering about you, Joe. It doesn't have to do with this book in particular, but writing 15 books over the course of a long career, are there any elements of writing that you have changed for you over 15 books, or is there anything that you have found has become harder or easier, or first of all, have all of your books been thrillers?
yes, they've all been thrillers. So in fact, I've published 17 novels,
Oh, I don't know
and
why we have 15. Sorry,
well,
that's my fault. I
there's a
right now.
goof in the book at the end. It says 15. That's
Oh,
where.
well, that's why.
That's why. Yeah. Um, so one of the things I sort of feel like I um, work on and have worked on and has become more important to me is deep characterization. Um, I think I didn't really think about characterization that much when I wrote my first novel, The Moscow Club. Um, and I realize more and more how important, and Danielle, you know this from your own books, how important character really is. It's central in these books. The reader has to ally herself with the character and find the character interesting and admirable in some ways, and um, so characterization is one thing that I've been working on a lot. One of the things that I worked on with this book in particular, I sort of felt like I was stretching in writing this book, but
Uh-huh.
it's not just a chase novel, it's also a love story. And I wanted the love story between Paul and Tatyana to feel grounded and plausible and real.
Ooh, I'm so excited. Yay, a
Yeah,
love story.
yeah, and that really, I think that really worked in this book, but it took some doing. I mean, I sort of had
Yeah.
to learn. Yeah,
Well, he's running through the woods in New Hampshire. When does he have time to fall in love? I suppose in the back, you have to flashback, right? But he has to have I think that having those emotional moments, especially in a
hmm
fast-paced novel, are so important
yeah,
because you give readers a chance to pause, to feel things, to inhabit the
right,
characters. and to really start rooting for these people that, I mean, if you're going through hell, if you're going
Yeah.
through, because a thriller, as we all know here, is about raising the stakes and putting these characters
Mhm.
into uncomfortable positions and
Yes.
just seeing how they handle it. But having, the sort of quieter moments of love and
Yeah.
internal connection. And I love what you about what you brought in about Russian culture and food, and all of that is something that I think is very important for me when I'm reading, is to
Yep.
be able to connect to all of those things. I mean, that's why we love books, right? To get to know
Yeah.
another human being
Yeah.
intimately in consciousness. So
And you want to
that's
see it, you want to learn another world and what that's like, you know? And
totally.
and also you can't have a book be all chase, all action. It's just
No,
boring to do that.
it becomes one note, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. So no, you've got to pause, you've got to slow down, you've got to have moments of contemplation that sort of contrast with the action and the
yes.
suspense.
Yes. So I'm going to just look at the chat for a second. Claudia Wolfkind, I don't know if you know
Oh,
Claudia, says,
I
"Hi,
do know
Joe."
Claudia,
And
absolutely.
Claudia, Trish, and Paragraph.
That
And
little doggy.
you have fans who are here. There's someone here, David Faulkner, who says that you are one of his must-read authors. If you write
Nice.
it, he reads it. So
Nice. Thank
that
you.
is the best
Thank you,
compliment I
Dave.
think that a
That's the
writer
best.
can hear.
That is the
And
best.
it's the best. And that's why we do it. That's why we go,
Yeah,
I think, to our desk every morning, is for those people who are waiting for a new book.
exactly.
And then there's Sharon Bishop, who asks, what do you find harder to write, the beginning, middle, or the end of your novels?
Oh, okay. I think that's a tough one because, I struggle with the beginning of the book a lot, and I think everybody does. But it's not that I can't figure out how to open the book so much as getting started, you know, launching into the book. I sort of think of it as like you're standing on a diving board and you have no idea what the water's like, you know? Is it going to be cold? Is the pool going to be shallow? We have no idea.
Gonna break your legs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the beginning is probably the hardest because that involves cracking in to the story. But the writing the middle is difficult too because you that's where often it risks sagging. It risks slowing down, or you risk being repetitive, and all of these things you don't want to do. So I work a lot on the middle sections of the book. So I'm kind of hedging my answer here, but I sort of feel like I guess I would say the beginning is the hardest. The end is something that I think about a lot while
It's
I'm
hard too.
writing.
Oh, we just say
It's hard
all three are
too.
really, really hard.
Yeah, right. They all are.
Right. For
Um,
different reasons.
for different reasons, and I think about the ending a lot. Um, I usually come up with the ending by the time I'm halfway through with the book. Um, I mean, it might change one way or another slightly. I tweak it one way or the other, but I usually have a good sense of where the book's going to end when I'm halfway through.
So you aren't one of those authors who have an outline when you start, because I was in I wasn't in conversation, but I was watching a conversation with Jeffrey Deaver, who, as
Mhm.
probably has something like 50 pages of outlines before he
More.
starts.
Mhm.
More. Okay,
Mhm.
more.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not you.
That is not me. I but what I do is I outline the first maybe 20% of the book,
Hmm.
because I want to get the setup right. And once I've got that done, once I've written that much of the book, I then feel free to just veer off. and go in whatever direction makes sense. So I outline the first little part of the book, and then I ad lib.
So fun. So I'm going to just pause here because Sarah is so good at this, and you can tell that I am not a professional. I'm actually a novelist in disguise of an interviewer here today. But everyone here who's listening, you can go and order Joe Finder's new book from Murder by the Book. You'll personalize them, right? Are you stopping by
Absolutely.
there?
I'm
Yeah,
going to, yes.
and it's a wonderful independent bookstore. I
Yeah.
love this bookstore, and it really supports a lot of people in our book ecosystem, I guess you could call it, by
Yeah.
buying independent bookstores like Murder by the Book. So jump on jump on online and order it online, or if you're in Texas, hop on over there and buy one in person. I have just a couple more questions for you. One of them is, I am curious about your writing routine. I know that people are wildly different. I have a lot of writer friends. Some people are night writers. They like to, write when everybody is sleeping. I personally am someone who gets up early and writes.
Yeah.
When do you work?
Yeah, I'm a morning person for sure. And I get up early, I make my coffee, and usually I dive right in. My office is not at home. My office is outside of our apartment in Boston. It's across the street, actually. So after I have my coffee and walk the dog, I cross the street and I get to my office, and I'm usually there by 8 or 8:30, and I just start. And I have to turn off my email. I've learned that, you know. Um,
Yeah, I have a
and
good app for you. It just freezes everything.
great. Yeah, I
Yeah,
need that. I
I'll
need that.
that
So
is.
yeah, I basically write in the morning, and I take a break in the middle of the day, and in the afternoon, I will either do research or plotting or editing.
And that's your day, and then you're done.
Yeah.
That is
How
a
about
full
you? How about you,
day. Well,
Danielle?
how do
Yeah.
what? How do I
How
work?
about you?
I'm very similar to you. I think you and I have a similar approach. My office is also outside of my home,
Mhm.
and I have a 7-year-old, so I get her off to school at 7:30, and then I walk across the park, and I go to my office, and I'm there about 8, and I work until I can't take it anymore. I torture myself until there's until I just can't take it, and then I run home screaming and pulling my hair out. So we have a couple more questions here. One is, I love this one from Orsayer Simmons. I hope I pronounced your name right. Forgive me if I didn't. If you had to go undercover for a mission, what would your dream cover story be? Like, what would you make up about yourself, and how long do you think you could keep it up?
Well, the best cover story is to be a writer, really, right?
Really?
I mean, you know,
People like believe that. They don't say,
y-
"Are you crazy?"
right, right. I mean, I'm watching this really good spy show right now called The Agency, and his cover was as a writer, and that's the easiest to backstop, uh, to sort of create the background for. Um, so I would go as a freelance writer. I think it's the best way.
Yeah, it explains a lot, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
you could probably talk craft with with anyone who tried to question you.
I can pull it off, exactly. It'd
Let's
be
talk about
awesome.
point of view.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us. Our time is up. And again, I want to just remind everyone to go buy Joe's book. It's available everywhere tomorrow. It releases tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
but you can go on and you can buy at Murder by the Book, and it will be ready for you. They'll ship it to you with a personalized message from Joe himself.
Right.
Well, thank you very much, Joe,
Danielle,
and good
thank
luck
you
with
so
your
much.
tour.
It's been
See you
great
soon.
talking with you. Yeah. See
It
you
was great
again
to see
soon.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.